interesting topic, talking about opportunities for diversity in the workplace in this current situation. What we have been seeing over the past few months and almost over a year is a drastic turn of events, the way things are happening. For example, 2019 was increasingly looked upon as the year of diversity and inclusion. Almost every other organization was talking about being more inclusive. They were talking about being a diverse organization, policies, practices, and everything was all about diversity and inclusion. It was kind of taking center stage. But right now, when the pandemic struck and when people have suddenly started changing the way they work, and now when we're trying to get back and readjust ourselves and get back to the new normal, some organizations are wondering whether diversity and inclusion needs to take a backseat. Now, that's what we're going to explore as what we see as opportunities. What I request the participants to do is, as I speak, if you have any questions, please start putting them in the Q&A box. I will definitely be looking at them as well, and I will try to address those questions in the talk itself. However, towards the end, we'll keep about 10 to 15 minutes where we will be able to talk about more questions that you might get. But I always keep this as a very open conversation. There is no presentation. Therefore, if you have questions, it makes sense for me to blend it into the talk as well. So feel free to drop in your questions in the Q&A box. So back to the topic. So while people started working remotely when the pandemic struck, what actually started happening is questions started emerging in people's minds as to what is it that we have to do with respect to diversity and inclusion. Now, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine around the same topic a couple of weeks ago, saying that we have recently hired a diversity and inclusion leader in our organization, and that's a key role. And we've made a huge investment in getting that person on board from another organization. And that's because we wanted to drive diversity and inclusion. But now, when we come back to the new normal, is there really going to be an opportunity? That seemed to be an interesting question. So we thought, let's take a look at it in perspective. Let's dissect the situation and let's see what are the challenges in diverse organizations. And let's see if there are any opportunities at all. So this was a conversation. All these were insights that I drew from the conversation with a friend of mine. So one of the things that's happening in the way people are working these days is, remote working from home rather, not just remote working, but working from home. A lot of organizations are going to continue working from home for a few more months. Perhaps that will become something that becomes sought after because, once you have tasted the advantages of working from home, it might become a requirement or a need that is cited by employees or cited by candidates when they join organizations. So if you have to be an employer of choice, you need to be able to provide for working from home. Now, how does this impact diversity? While on the one hand, getting people to the workplace was considered very traditional and all of that, it also was, in a way, a kind of a leveler where everybody who came to the workplace, irrespective of whatever background they came from, they had similar kind of facilities, infrastructure in the workplace. So whatever tools and infrastructure they had was pretty much similar, and so they were expected to deliver equal to each other and compete based on the competencies that they have. Now, in the situation of working from home, what happens is you see a new aspect of diversity coming in. The infrastructure that people may have or may not have at their homes, right? So you have people who have a comfortable, silent, secluded room which they can dedicate as their home office. While on the other hand, there could be other team members who have to find a secluded corner in their house so that they're able to take their work calls from there when they're working from home. There could be people who have a desk space and a comfortable chair and they can actually pretty much set up an office at home. Whereas there could be others who have to take those calls from their mobile phones. Now, I work with clients where I have all these kinds of diversity in the workplace. Now, do I call this a challenge or do I look at this as an opportunity? Now, anybody would typically call this a challenge because you have to find a common level between all kinds of team members you have, the kind of infrastructure, different levels of infrastructure that they might have at home, and the challenges associated with it. But for me, an eternal optimist, this is something which I see as an opportunity more than a challenge. And I'll tell you why. What happens here is when you have people having such diverse backgrounds, diverse economic backgrounds, diverse infrastructure availability with them, there's something called as cognitive diversity that sets in. Now, what is cognitive diversity is the diversity that comes in via the experiences that they bring with them, right? So each of them living in a different kind of an atmosphere, each of them having a different kind of a work ambience when they are working from home, makes them think differently. So the experience that they have at their home offices right now brings in a huge amount of cognitive diversity in the team. So when a team is comprised of people coming from so much differences at their homes, the team is actually equipped with a lot of cognitive diversity, that is diversity that comes from different kinds of experiences. So when it comes to problem solving, probably one could look at cognitive diversity as a huge advantage, where people are able to bring in different experiences to the table, which could probably lead to solving. So an opportunity for diversity here, which we did not think about last year, is cognitive diversity. And I think it makes huge sense for us to leverage on that. Now, apart from the cognitive diversity, what else happens? Now, earlier, how work used to be delegated. I'm just going back and now this was again the conversation with my friend, and we were actually thinking how work used to get delegated in the past. Like let's say, like last year. So we had managers who had their teams, their task forces sitting in one floor, in one bay. And there could be a few team members who were located in another city or another office. But typically, as far as possible, when there was one project, the project team members used to sit together as a task force. So what was happening is when work was delegated, it was easy to delegate to the person who is sitting right in front of you. Okay? And a person who is sitting in another city or another office was not the first obvious choice for delegation of work. This is a very common human behavior, unless of course those skills are very specific to those tasks. Apart from that, when it comes to facing the moods of the manager, whether it is good or bad, the person sitting right in front of the manager seemed to have an undue advantage or a disadvantage, as the case may be. But the person who is sitting in sorry, I got lost for a moment. Yeah, so people sitting in another office or another city kind of had an escape or a respite from facing the moods of the manager. Now what's happening? Whether a team member is based out of the USA or whether a team member is living next door in the next building, everybody is connecting only through technology, through a technological platform, and sharing work, sharing their deliverables, having their meetings only through the technological platforms. So whether you're sitting on another part of the world or you're sitting right here next doors, it doesn't really matter. Everybody seems to be equal. So when it comes to delegation of work, there is no possibility that one will be able to delegate to someone sitting in front of you. So what is happening is there is a lot of inclusivity that's happening within teams. And this is happening pretty much by default. Everyone has become kind of equal when it comes to distance with the manager. So the team members' distance with the manager is what we call as power distance, right? So power distance, whether it is geographical or whether it is emotional, right now, the geographical distance really doesn't matter. And when it comes to the power distance, it's only the emotional aspect that really plays a role. Now, when the power distance is very, very less or very insignificant or hardly visible, it just doesn't matter whether you're working remotely or you're working under the nose of the manager. When the power distance is very less, everyone is open and free to speak his mind, give his or her point of view, and have an opinion and voice the opinion. So in the current situation, inclusive behavior could become prevalent provided certain conditions are satisfied to encourage that inclusive behavior. So this is something which I see as an opportunity. So as we were having this conversation, my friend was pretty much intrigued, saying that while the organization is talking about putting diversity at the back burner for a while, it's amazing to see that there are so many opportunities for diversity in the workplace in the new normal. So while we carried this discussion forward, we thought it makes sense for us to figure out how is it that we encourage inclusivity. We said, right, inclusivity is possible, but we need to encourage, we need to prod, we coach managers to demonstrate that inclusive behavior. That's the role of HR, that's the role of coaches. So anyone who's a manager, who's a coach, needs to play that role to train others to play an inclusive role. Now, how do we do that? If you want to increase inclusivity, you have to keep telling your team members that there is no difference between anyone who's sitting right in front of you or sitting far away. And when you're delegating work, do it with equity. And when you're letting people speak in those forums, in those meetings that are happening virtually, it's your role as a manager to ensure that you're able to make everyone speak. So there is no one who is less heard or who's most heard. You cannot have somebody who's absolutely silent, or you cannot have someone who's absolutely vocal either. So it becomes the role of the person who's running the meeting to actually ensure that he hears every voice. Not just that. Now, because most of these meetings get recorded, there is a feature that you can record those meetings and not necessarily only left to scribing them. What happens is someone who is extremely silent, who's not voicing his or her view, or someone who's extremely vocal, all of these get noticed and they are recorded. So there is also a kind of a push on participants to be participative and be noticed. So what's happening is a lot of viewpoints actually come to the table during those discussions. Okay, while we are talking on this, we have a question from Arjun, and Arjun is asking, with remote working catching on, do you feel teams would become global now, even for small companies? How do the diversity goals change with this trend? Appropriate question at this juncture, Arjun. So what I wish to say here is that remote working, there is a great possibility that it will catch on even for small organizations. There are a few organizations to whom I advise, and they have found candidates who are suitable for their projects, who are ready to start on immediately, and they are located in different parts of the world, not just different parts of the country, different parts of the world. Therefore, there are different engagements with such employees that are being looked at. A lot of the statutory norms are being verified, taxation norms are being verified, so on and so forth. But the tendency to look at global teams is increasing even in small companies, because people are looking at competencies and the skill sets that are required to get the right people on board. Because now the huge cost and the aspect of relocation is not there, because technology is helping you to work from anywhere in the world. And therefore, this is becoming an increasing trend. Now, how do diversity goals change with this trend? How diversity goals are changing, and at that time I will cover that. So, moving on from the aspect of getting more inclusive teams, I think the next thing that comes into place is the leadership behavior. So, this being a very unique situation, leadership nuances have also taken center stage. There is an automatic expectation that managers and team leaders start demonstrating impeccable leadership qualities. And when we say that, what is actually expected of them is to ensure that everyone is treated fairly. There is transparency in processes, there is transparency in the way feedback is given, so on and so forth. When it comes to performance monitoring, when it comes to measurement of deliverables, once again, leaders are expected to be absolutely, demonstrate equity when it comes to dealing with team members, because people are having to deal with a whole lot of situations at home. So this has brought an interesting aspect of leadership in front of us, which was not the priority all these years, and that is about leaders or managers becoming coaches. So the friend of mine was actually talking about observations where a lot of micromanagers have started looking at their teams quite differently these days when they're working remotely, saying that it's up to us to help them, to enable them so that they're able to deliver on time. So a lot of accountability of coaching has moved to the managers, whereas the team members have started taking a lot of accountability of managing their own deliverables. So in the aspect of diversity, in the context of diversity, I think leaders have started understanding a lot of behaviors, and their expectation is that their teams, which consists of people with diverse behaviors, will be a very productive team, so that different kinds of thinking come into the place. Right. So there's another question from Siddharth, which says, when working with large teams with people from diverse backgrounds, how does the manager handle differences in opinions and conflicting teammates? Siddharth, again, this is a relevant question at the right time, so I'll take it right here. So when there are large teams and people are working from diverse locations, from diverse backgrounds, there are bound to be a lot of differences in opinion and conflicts. It happens even if they're working face to face. So there is no question that conflicts don't happen. But definitely when people are coming from diverse backgrounds, it goes without saying that there will be differences of opinion and there could be conflicts. Now it's up to the managers to be able to take that in the right perspective. So when it comes to when you're having, for example, when you're having a conference call with all your team members, and there is somebody who is very, very vociferous with his or her opinion and is not letting the other person talk, the manager here actually has no choice but to make this person stop talking and give the others an opportunity to speak up. Now just put this in the context of a physical meeting. Now what happens in a meeting in a conference room? It sometimes becomes very easy to ignore or not notice a silent person. It takes a lot of effort to notice. But when you have a digital meeting, when you have a meeting virtually, it becomes pretty obvious as to who is speaking more and who is speaking less. Moreover, a lot of these meetings, like I said a few minutes back, are recorded. And therefore, when a recording is viewed, it's easy for the manager to go back and ask that person who was extremely vocal to be a little controlled, or ask the person who was extremely silent to give his or her views. So managers can handle differences when they make the silent people speak up, and they make the most vociferous people calm down. So when they neutralize behaviors, they should be able to manage differences in opinions. And when they're conflicting teammates, it actually gives a manager an opportunity to take a look at the video, understand the body language if people keep the videos on, understand body language, even sense the pulse of conflicts. The conflicts may not be evident, may not be out in the open, but they may be able to notice that in the body language and the way they speak, and then start having those one-on-one conversations with each of them so that they're able to resolve those conflicts. So I think managers by default in this current situation, because they have diverse teams working from diverse situations from across anywhere in the world, I think they have by default, they will have to start playing the role of the coaches so that they can manage conflicting teammates. Another interesting aspect the situation has brought in terms of diversity, and this is actually leading to the response that Arjun Arjun's second question: how do diversity goals change with this trend? What's happening now is a lot of people who have started working from home. So job descriptions have also started accommodating a lot of work from home, because people have realized it is doable. So let's go ahead and do it. Let's create those job descriptions where people can work from home. This is not something which cannot be done. So there's a lot of faith that deliverables can happen even if people work from home. So with this, as job descriptions are getting rewritten to enable people work from home, what is actually happening is there's a whole bunch of a category of people who used to find it difficult to commute to the workplace for several reasons. All of them are becoming employable, right? That could probably bring in a lot more gender diversity, because statistics have shown that women tend to take a step back when it comes to dealing with domestic and professional responsibilities. They tend towards domestic responsibilities. But now when the situation allows you to work from home, it's possibly something where women may gain employable opportunities at the workplace. They can work from home, they can work flexibly, so on and so forth, which could be a reason which might trigger a better balance in the gender diversity. Although personally, I am not a very big fan of gender diversity being the only aspect of diversity, but I think here that could get triggered in the positive direction, and we might see better numbers of women working from home and becoming more employable. It also brings in another aspect. There could be a bunch of physically challenged people who are not employable for a simple fact that they find it very difficult to commute to the workplace, especially in a country like ours, where we are still not yet ready for people with special requirements, commuting, etc. We are not yet ready. So here, when there is a possibility to work from home and organizations are embracing work from home, there could be a trend where people with disabilities and people with specially able people can get work opportunities. Now, diversity goals can change for the better in this direction. Improved gender diversity and improved diversity with respect to differentially abled at the workplace. Now, Arjun, that was your second question, and I'm already noticing some of the organizations and from friends from the fraternity. I'm noticing some of the organizations actually redrawing their diversity goals because they know that there is talent. They know that there are skill sets that are required. They know that there are competencies for people, but the only challenge is they cannot travel, or they cannot relocate, or they cannot commute to their offices. But now with organizations actually welcoming and embracing and encouraging work from home, I think the diversity goals can pretty much change in that direction for the better. Now, with all this in place, as my friend and I were actually dissecting the situation, we were still looking at what is it that could happen to the diversity champions in organizations. How are they going to deal with this situation? So diversity champions were people who were hired with very specific goals of improving diversity in the organization when it was last year, when diversity was running as a key theme. But typically speaking, a lot of diversity champions consider diversity to either include gender diversity or linguistic diversity, so on and so forth. But now I think the aspect of looking into behaviors could also become an important aspect. People could start looking at, like I said, cognitive diversity that could surface as a big topic in itself. Cognitive diversity is something that could surface as something which people will want to study more, research more, because when it comes to problem solving, like I said, cognitive diversity probably plays a key role because different experiences will lead to solutions to problems. And why problem solving now in this context is important is that right now, business it did go through a downturn. Some businesses started picking up. Some businesses are, now it's kind of everybody is at different stages. So there are some businesses which are right in the focus. For example, sanitization, that business is kind of right in the focus. It's in the limelight. So there are different challenges that are coming. I know of an organization where I advise, where they are mainly in the business of facilities management and in the cleaning business. And they are in the prime focus suddenly. So when they are in the prime focus, there is a huge requirement of their manpower, and their whole organization is buzzing with activity. Now, when it comes to that, they face unique challenges. Now they're finding a manpower crunch. While not so recent in the past, they were an organization which was considered secondary and just a cleaning services organization. Now they're finding to have a manpower crunch because all organizations right across the country are wanting them to provide their services. Now, with that comes a lot of challenges. Now, when they're having to supply so much of manpower, they need to take care of compliance. They need to take care of all the, background verification, so on and so forth. So much more because this is a cleaning services company, and all the more for security reasons of their clients, they need to do all of that. With this, they're actually encountering a few problems related to compliance and security verifications, etc. Now, when they go with the traditional thinking of everybody thinking along the same lines, they may not find it very easy to get quick solutions. But when they have diversity in their behaviors, when they have cognitive diversity, diversity in their experiences, they're able to come back with more realistic on the ground solutions. So one of the challenges they had is, how do we get people from rural areas, semi-rural areas, because they will be ready to join immediately. They speak the local language, and they will be you can train them easily in the local language, and so on and so forth. So right now, a lot of their their hometown and their work there. So they have got a completely decentralized hiring department wherein they're able to get people. Now, this idea actually came from someone who is working from his village, and he said, I am sitting here, and although I've never done recruitment, I can jump in and start doing hiring so that we're able to get more business in this area. A supervisor, okay, a cleaning supervisor is able to take up a decision about business development for his organization. Now, this is coming with his experience of being in his hometown. Now, this is what is meant by advantage due to cognitive diversity. Now, we have a couple of questions, and let me take a look at them. There's somebody who doesn't want to give his name, but what are some of the new challenges that have emerged due to work from home? What are your recommendations to overcome? Work from home is something which all of us started doing without giving it much thought, right? So initially there was a euphoria, and we were all extremely happy, saying, I've always wanted to work from home, and now I have an opportunity, and let me do it to the fullest extent. So because of that, a lot of challenges have emerged. Most of us are unable to draw the line of where the boundary of the office stops and where the boundary of the home starts. Office time creeps into home time creeps into office time, so on and so forth. So what's actually happening is that a lot of people are reaching burnout. I know of many friends who are awake round the clock, who are probably working round the clock and are taking random times to sleep and to rest or to even take a shower. There are these strange situations that happen. Now, these are typical challenges. Now, there are other challenges in terms of how do you handle your work as well as your home at the same time. I'm not talking typically about a work-life balance. Again, I'm not a big fan of that jargon itself. But when you have to focus on work, you also find that because you are working from home, you have to do a lot of work at home as well. So how do you prioritize? Now that's becoming a challenge. Earlier, prioritization was easy because the time you leave the front door of your house, you're not going to look at what is required at home till you're back. But now when things are happening in front of you, your mind is constantly learning to prioritize. How do you take this ahead? That's a challenge. Another challenge right now is the situation itself, where it's too stressful to manage things at home. So all this could add to difficulties in the work deliverables. Now, my recommendations to overcome are very straightforward. I think it's very important for people to be able to draw the line very clearly, saying these are my work hours. At the most, you can have flexible working hours so that you accommodate work that you have to do for home while you're working from home. But it's very important to draw lines, and how you do that is very simple. If we can learn to plan our day, plan the 24 hours. Do not plan only the work hours, then it doesn't work properly. If you plan your 24 hours, putting in enough of hours of work so that you complete the deliverables you have set for yourself, I think that's a very easy way to prioritize your activities. Rather than saying, I will put in 8 hours of work for the workplace and the rest of it is my family time. That never happens. So the best way is identify what are the things that you wish to do today. What are your deliverables for the day? And distribute that in a way in your 24-hour clock so that you're able to accommodate things that you're required to do at home or focus at home. Okay? So that gives you automatically a kind of a balance between doing work at home and doing work for the organization. So that's the easiest way to do it. Use a 24-hour. We have another question which says, what are the right ways to sensitize a male-dominated workforce at an organization, especially when nothing seems to change the traditional mindset? For example, pretty women are considered fitter for client-facing roles. That's a very interesting question. Okay. So traditional mindset is something that we have to constantly challenge. That's the best way to drive a change. So it's not about pretty faces that are required for client facing roles. So somewhere behaviors have to be looked at. What is it that is an expectation of a client? Now, understanding the expectations of client, if that is given priority, I think the mindset change gets driven properly. So if you start looking at how self-managed teams work, okay, you might find that is slightly unrelated, but I'll show you where the relation is. When teams are self-managed, okay, you tell them that this is what is the big picture, this is where we are heading, and you are a team and you're facing this client as a team. So organize yourselves in whichever way you think is best. And if you let the teams manage themselves the way they face the clients, I think no team will want to fail. So when the team doesn't want to fail, they will put the right person in front of the client. So whether it is male dominated workforce or whatsoever, client facing becomes something of prime importance where the team will not wish to fail. So they will start putting people who are competent to face the client. Now, in that bargain, if a pretty face is something which is the competency for that moment, might as well do it. But that would not go as the only solution. So competencies will get focused on a lot more, because it doesn't really matter when you're working remotely or when you're working virtually. It doesn't really matter whether you have a pretty face or not. You can always keep your video off. So competencies will matter. And that's something which will start changing the mindset. People will start looking at the bigger picture. What is it that the client needs, and how are we aligning to what are the needs of the client? And accordingly, roles will start getting created. Jai Devi's question is, how about age diversity and how it can be handled? Age diversity is definitely already there. We are already seeing at least 3 generations working together. At one point of time, I had somebody who's 20 years older to me, reporting into me, and also 20 years younger to me, reporting into me. So the age difference between them was 40 years, right? So that is a kind of diversity of age that comes into place. And that's going to get even worse, the kind of age diversity that will be in as we progress is because the remote working has, and work from home, etc., has encouraged a lot of encouraged a possibility of gig workers taking a major space in the organizations. So with that, nothing stops from 5 generations to be working together. So when you have people of different generations working together, from me, the simplest way to deal with age diversity is to not look at the diversity itself. Okay? Look at all of them as adults. Treat everyone as adults, whether it is a 22-year-old fresher graduate, or whether it is a 60-year-old who is on the verge of retirement, or someone who is beyond 60 who has come in as a gig worker. Treat everyone as an adult. So when I say treat everyone as an adult, it simply means that do not assume that you have to give instructions to the 22-year-old, okay? And do not assume that the 62-year-old will have all the answers to all the problems. That assumption is what that creates the conflict and the rift between different ages, different generations. But if you treat the whole team as a team of responsible adults, and you put the problem in front of the team, on their own, each generation will come up with their own area of expertise. I did that as an experiment and it worked beautifully. When there was a problem which required experience as well as new age technology as a skill, whenever experience was required to be in the forefront, my 62-year-old team member would come forth and give all the knowledge around the experience that he has. Whenever it would require a technology-based solution, my 22-year-old team member would come and take center stage. So as long as I'm giving the team as a manager the big picture, okay, and not differentiating anything on my own based on the different ages of people, treating everybody as adults, I think that is the simplest answer to handle age diversity. The problem comes only when we assume that millennials need to be told what is to be done. We assume that millennials are looking for instant gratification, but the fact is all of us like instant gratification. There is nobody who says who's going to be unhappy with the gratification. So, right? So instead of labeling these behaviors for generations, I think the simplest is treat every individual as an adult, and automatically people will leverage their own strengths. And invariably, it will be this strength that this generation brings along with it, and that's the best way to do it. Yeah. Jai Devi has another question. What will be the current role of DNI managers when employees are working from home? I did touch upon this, Jai Devi, but I will again say, when employees are working from home, the diversity goals will have to be redefined. What it means now, diversity for different organizations, they can have different diversity targets or diversity goals. So when people are working from home, if they had a certain, let's say they had a gender diversity target of, let's say 30% of women in leadership, right? If that was their gender diversity target, now with people working from home, it might become increasingly possible for them to hire more women leaders. So when they hire more women leaders, obviously their gender diversity target of 30% women in leadership roles could be shifted. So DNI managers will have to look at their diversity targets, and they will have to rework the methodology to reach the new targets. When it comes to inclusion, inclusion is also a behavior, right? So DNI managers will have to work a lot on trying to figure out how they're going to bring about inclusivity when people work from home. As simple as what are the kind of coaching they will have to give to managers so that they demonstrate a behavior of inclusivity with their team members. Now, inclusivity is treating everybody as equals and respecting each other's strengths and weaknesses and bringing everyone's strengths to the table. That's what inclusivity all about. And DNI managers will have to rethink their strategy for diversity, and they'll have to rethink their strategy for developing inclusive behavior within their organizations. There's someone here who says, not a question, but my thoughts, and I really welcome that. So work from home is a double-edged sword. It has its pros and cons. You need to be careful while using it. Lately, I realize it's like blessing in disguise for me. Much needed break to rediscover myself and to know my life goals. And thank you for this wonderful talk. Has not revealed the name, but whoever it is, I'm glad you liked it. But definitely, work from home has been like a breather for a lot of people because a lot of work related stress was due to commute in cities like Mumbai, where I live in. A lot of work related stress was because of micromanagement that automatically tend to surface in the workplace. So when people started working from home, they felt a little bit of respite, that I can wake up at the time that I want. I need not even shower, for example, but I can still go ahead and do my work. It let people be themselves. You know, it's of great importance for each person to be himself, be that authentic self, be in your own skin, and not have to wear a mask every day. So a lot of these masks at the workplace got reduced because you are working from the comfort of your homes. But at the same time, yes, you're absolutely right. Everything has its pros and cons. Everything has its advantages and disadvantages. But it is up to each one of us to look at the situation and to leverage on the advantages it brings and to work on the disadvantages so that we don't make a mess of the whole thing. So if you're able to deal with people working from home and work gets done better than how it was in the past, we've seen statistics which shows 40% improvement in productivity, a huge drop in absenteeism. Because if I'm slightly feeling under the weather, I can still work from home when I have the opportunity. Why would I want to take a leave, right? So absenteeism is coming down big time, and productivity is increasing. So with all of that, and with stress levels also coming down for people who were stressed due to commute and due to some situations in the workplace, I think it's a huge advantage, and those should be leveraged. Yeah, but of course there are problems about. There could be some misuse. There could be people who are not delivering to the extent that they're expected to. There could be people who are playing truant, but usually that's a very small number. So I think if you're looking at the 97% of the people who are going to do their best and deliver their best to the organization, let's not worry about the 3% where the misuse normally happens. The misuse usually happens in the 2 to 3%, which is something which can be ignored. Kant says, not as much related to diversity. How different can I expect my office to be when it opens? How to do a fresh start with the team? Absolutely pertinent question, Kant. We do not know when this is going to happen in which city at what time, but definitely there is something here which is something to look up to, is that the situation is not likely to become absolutely normal. It's still we're going to learn to live with it. So when we have to live with it, we will learn to deal with it as well. So when you go back to your office, a lot of organizations are certifying themselves as 6 feet organizations. The organizations who have opened up partially are also calling themselves as 6 feet organizations. So what you can expect your office to be is perhaps a 6 feet organization, which means the number of people who are allowed to work in the office at any point in time could be restricted. There could be a very strict reduction in the number, which means people will have to work from home and work from office alternatively based on some rosters. A lot of facilities teams are looking at different designs of 6 feet offices where they are cordoning off some areas, they are closing down the gathering areas, they are changing the seating arrangements to alternate, to have only alternate seats available at any point of time so that there's no clustering of people. You might even see things like increased use of intercom. Till recently we used to say, walk up to your colleague, speak, open up, speak, because man is a social animal. Don't send emails for everything. And now we are going to tell people that using intercom, send emails, avoid physical contact, continue maintaining physical distancing. So that is something that is likely to be in the new workplace. Apart from that, you can also find some very interesting nuances in the new workplace, which is, earlier we were told that always hold the railing of the staircase when you walk up and down the stairs. Something like that can be said, that you might find signages which say, do not hold the railing, right? Falling down and getting injured may be somewhat better than getting affected by a virus which can spread by contact, right? So there could be, that was on the lighter side, but there could be all such changes. And how to do a fresh start with your team is, I think, first of all, it's important for everyone to create awareness within the team as to how you have to understand what these new norms mean. For example, if your organization has decided to be a 6 feet organization, it's important to set expectations with everyone in your team as to what is a 6 feet organization and how do you abide by it. And I think not demonstrating any kind of urgency in getting back to whatever we used to do earlier, and being very, very careful about how to deal with the new norms. And that's the most important thing, to have a fresh start with the team. Okay, so that was Manjeet, your thoughts. Yeah, thanks, Manjeet. Shruti has a question. As a lead D&I currently, when manpower rationalization is carried on, the whole gender diversity and related agenda tends to go for a toss. We may not even have a say to this decision of senior management. Any guidance for us on how do we recollect or reconstruct? Shruti, I think let's not take a pessimistic view on this. Okay, let's not assume that the gender diversity agenda may go for a toss. It might happen in your organization, I'm not sure, but my expectation is that it will be an expectation of the D&I leader to come up with ideas on what you can do when it comes to manpower rationalization. It's quite, now we all know, as a D&I lead, I'm sure you know that there were statistics of gender pay gap, right? We've seen loads of data where reports of gender pay gap. And I think when it comes to manpower rationalization, if the gender pay gap that exists in your organization can be leveraged in a situation like this, where you can have somebody who's actually paid less, but with the same level of competency and can work from home, leverage on that gender pay gap now and improve the gender diversity. Earlier, gender pay gap was a matter of concern, but if you can use gender pay gap now so that you're showing a cost advantage to your organization by employing women and they can work from home, why don't you leverage on that? So I think that's one way. I mean, this is just an example. If there is a concern area in your previous diversity reports that could be leveraged for your manpower rationalization. So your manpower rationalization is based on competency, And if there's a gender pay gap that is going to help you to change that, I think you should leverage on that and use it. And you to basically redraw your strategy for all your diversity targets. We are on the dot at 6:46. So do we have any more questions? Otherwise, over to the organizers. And I was told that this is for 45 minutes, including Q&A. So we can sign off from here. Over to you, Nijansh. Nijansh, if you're still there.
Yes, hi. So I think people had so many questions, and you've been very sweet to answer each and every question fantastically. Thank you so much for that. To all the audience who have joined us, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for sharing your questions. I really hope that you found this session helpful, and I am sure you will incorporate the suggestions by Mrs. Srinivasan within your organizations. I wish you all the very best. I think we are running out of time, so we'll take a hard stop here. Thank you, Mrs. Srinivasan, for your very valuable time. And to anyone who wants to revisit this session, who wants to listen to any of the pointers that you might have missed, this video will very soon also be available on Speaking's official YouTube channel. So please stay tuned for that. Thank you, everyone, and have a great evening ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much to everybody in Speak in Asia, and thank you for all to be here. And everyone stay safe. It was absolutely a pleasure talking to each one of you. And hope to see everyone safe.